My son and his wife were laughing at the bank while taking my money. I couldn't believe my eyes. The pen felt heavier than it ever had in my 71 years of living. I watched my own hand tremble as I held it over the signature line, the line that would move every cent I had ever earned, every dollar I had scraped together through 43 years of overtime shifts and skipped vacations, out of my account and into my son's. And when I looked up, searching for some sign of gratitude, some flicker of the boy I had raised, what I found instead stopped my heart cold. Marcus was laughing. Not a nervous chuckle, not the uncomfortable kind of laugh people do when they don't know what to say. He was laughing, shoulders shaking, head tilted back, his hand over his mouth as if trying to hold it in, and his wife, Renata, was right there beside him, her perfectly manicured fingers squeezing his arm, her eyes bright with amusement at something he had whispered into her ear. They didn't see me watching. They thought I was still bent over the paper. I set down the pen. My name is Daniel Holt. I was born in a two-room house in rural Georgia to a man who repaired shoes for a living and a woman who took in laundry. We were not rich people. We were not even comfortable people. We were the kind of poor that teaches you, early and without mercy, that money is not a thing you waste. It is a thing you guard, because there will come a day when the world tries to take it from you, and if you are not careful, it will succeed. I carried that lesson with me when I moved north at 22. I carried it through the factory floors of my 20s, through the night school accounting courses of my 30s, through the small bookkeeping firm I built with borrowed capital and a lot of nerve in my 40s. By the time I retired at 68, I had saved just under $400,000. It wasn't a fortune by most standards, but to a man who once ate bread and water for 3 days because payday was a week away, it was everything. It was proof that a life of discipline means something. It was also, apparently, something my son had been thinking about for a long time. Marcus came to me 8 months ago with what he called an opportunity. He sat across from me at my kitchen table, the same table where I had helped him with homework, where I had listened to his heartbreaks, where I had watched him become a man, and he laid out a business proposal, a real estate venture, a partner he trusted, properties in a part of the city that was about to boom. All he needed was seed capital. All he needed was me to believe in him the way I always had. "Dad," he said, and his voice had that particular warmth it gets when he wants something, "you've always told me to take risks when the timing is right. The timing is right." I should have asked more questions. I know that now. But there is something about your child asking you to believe in them that bypasses every rational instinct you have. You stop being a careful man. You become a father again, and fathers want their children to soar. I said yes. We agreed I would transfer $150,000, a little more than a third of everything I had, into a joint account he would manage for the venture. It was enough to make me nervous. Not enough, I thought, to ruin me if things went sideways. What I did not know, what I could not have imagined, was that Marcus had already been withdrawing money from that account for 3 months before he ever asked for my signature on the final transfer. He had my banking information. I had trusted him with it during a medical scare the previous year when I needed him to pay some bills while I recovered. He had used it quietly, carefully, in amounts small enough that I hadn't caught them in my statements. I found this out the morning of the bank appointment, not before we went, but during, when the teller printed a transaction history I had requested on a whim, and I sat there in the small office chair and watched the numbers tell me a story I wasn't prepared for. $62,000, gone, in small, steady increments over 93 days. And my son was in the lobby, laughing with his wife. I want to be fair to myself in this telling. I want to resist the temptation that comes to every wronged person, the temptation to make yourself entirely innocent, to scrub away the moments where you were foolish or naive, because those moments embarrass you. So let me be honest. I had signs. Renata, Marcus's wife of 6 years, had never been warm to me. Not cold exactly, but there was always a calculation behind her eyes when she looked at me. She was the kind of woman who assessed rooms when she entered them, who always knew the price of things. I had chalked it up to personality. Some people are just that way. But looking back, I remember the way she had leaned forward when Marcus first mentioned the investment. I remember how she had reached across the table and covered his hand with hers and said, very sweetly, "Daniel, Marcus has worked so hard. This is his chance." She called me Daniel. She had never called me Daniel in 6 years. It was always Dad, or when she was feeling distant, nothing at all. And I remember thinking briefly, why is she selling this so hard? And then pushing the thought away because I didn't want to be the suspicious old man who sees schemes in everything. I should have been that man. I had earned the right to be that man. I did not confront Marcus in the bank. This surprises people when I tell the story because most imagine that is exactly what you do. You walk out of the office, transaction history in hand, and you confront the person who has stolen from you in front of fluorescent lights and strangers and security guards. You make a scene. You demand answers. But I have lived 71 years, and I have learned that the first thing anger makes you do is rarely the right thing. I have learned that people who are confronted publicly become defensive, and defensive people rarely tell you the truth. They perform. They cry if they think crying will work, or they attack if they think attacking will work, and either way you walk away knowing no more than you did before, except now you've also lost your dignity. I stood up from the office chair. I folded the transaction history and put it in the inside pocket of my jacket. I walked out into the lobby where Marcus and Renata were still talking, their laughter settling into easy smiles, and I said, "I need some air. I'll meet you outside." Marcus looked at me. Something shifted in his face, a flicker of something I couldn't read. "Everything okay in there, Dad?" "Fine," I said, "just need some air." I walked out of the bank into the gray October morning, and I sat on a bench across the street, and I breathed, slowly and deliberately, the way my doctor had taught me after my blood pressure diagnosis 2 years ago. In through the nose, 4 counts. Hold for 4. Out through the mouth, 4 counts. I did this until my hands stopped shaking. Then I took out my phone and called my attorney. Her name is Patricia Osai, and she has been my attorney for 19 years. She is a small, precise woman in her late 50s who once described her legal philosophy to me as assume nothing, document everything, and never let sentiment make decisions that math should make. I had always liked that about her. I liked it considerably more on that October morning. I told her what I had found. She was quiet for a moment. "Do you still have the paper?" "In my pocket." "Good, don't sign anything else today. Tell Marcus the bank needs additional time to process the transfer, a compliance check, something routine. Then come to my office this afternoon. He'll know something is wrong." "Yes," she said simply, "he will." What followed was 6 weeks of the most painful education of my life. Patricia and her team pulled every transaction. They built a timeline. They documented, with the kind of cold precision that only spreadsheets can achieve, exactly what had been taken when, and this was the part that made me sit in my car for 20 minutes before I could go home, what it had been spent on. A vacation to Portugal. New furniture for a house Marcus and Renata were renting and had apparently already been planning to buy. 3 months of payments on a car I didn't know Renata had leased. Dinners. Clothes. A weekend at a resort in the mountains that, based on the photos Renata had posted on her social media page, had been described to their friends as a little anniversary treat we saved up for. They had been living in part on my life savings, and they had been laughing about it. That detail, the laughing, stayed with me more than any other. Patricia told me not to fixate on it, that I didn't actually know what they had been laughing about, that it might have been entirely unrelated. And she was right, technically. But I also know my son. I know the particular looseness that comes over his body when he feels like he has gotten away with something. I saw it when he was 9 and had stolen a piece of candy from the store and thought I didn't know. I saw it at 16 when he came home past curfew and thought his story had landed. It is a specific kind of ease, a relief dressed up as happiness. He thought he had gotten away with it. He had not. I will not detail the legal proceedings here, partly because they are still, as of this writing, in process, and partly because Patricia has advised me not to, and I have learned to listen to Patricia. What I will say is this. Marcus called me 3 days after I didn't sign the papers. His voice had a careful quality to it, measured and gentle, the voice of a man who is constructing something rather than feeling something. "Dad, I just wanted to check in. You seemed off at the bank." "I'm fine, Marcus. Is there anything you want to talk about?" I thought about the Portugal photos. I thought about the resort in the mountains, Renata in a white robe on a balcony, a glass of wine in her hand, smiling at the camera. A little treat we saved up for. "Not yet," I said. There was a pause. "Okay, well, I love you, Dad." I had said I love you back to my son approximately 10,000 times in his life, reflexively, the way you breathe out. This time I said, "I'll talk to you soon, Marcus." And I ended the call, and I sat in the silence of my apartment, and I let myself feel, fully and without rushing past it, the particular grief of realizing that someone you love is also someone you cannot trust. It is a grief unlike other griefs. It does not arrive clean. It comes tangled with memory, with every good moment that now has a question mark hanging over it, with every time you wonder if the kindness was real or strategic, with every birthday call and holiday dinner that you now have to re-examine in light of what you know. It is exhausting in a way that has no name. I cried that night. I am not embarrassed to say so. 71 years old, $400,000, a life built on discipline and faith in the people I loved, and I sat in my kitchen at that same table and I cried. But I also, when I was done, washed my face, made tea, sat back down. Because I am Daniel Holt, and I did not survive what I have survived by staying on the floor. There are things I want people, especially older people, to take from what I am sharing. The first is this. Love is not a reason to skip due diligence. I know how that sounds. I know it sounds cold and transactional and contrary to everything we are taught about what family means. But I have come to believe that real love, the mature, honest kind, includes holding the people you love accountable to standards. Letting someone steal from you because confronting them feels unloving is not love. It is a failure dressed up as generosity. The second is this. Get a good attorney and keep them close. Not because you expect to need them. Because life is long and complicated, and the moments when you need one tend to arrive without warning, and you do not want to be finding one for the first time while you are also trying not to fall apart. The third is this, and it is perhaps the hardest. Some people will use your love against you precisely because they know it is real. They know you will extend the benefit of the doubt. They know you will push away the suspicious thought. They count on your decency. And when that happens, the answer is not to become hard or closed. The answer is to become careful. There is a difference. Hardness shuts everyone out. Carefulness simply stops letting comfort override your instincts. My instincts told me something was wrong. I silenced them because the alternative, that my son was deceiving me, was too painful to consider. That silence cost me $62,000 and 6 weeks of grief, and a relationship that may never fully recover. Marcus has not admitted to anything yet. His attorney has described the withdrawals as a misunderstanding regarding access permissions, a phrase so deliberately vague that it manages to say absolutely nothing while sounding like something. Renata has not called me. I did not expect her to. What I did not expect, and what I want to end with because it matters, is the call I received last week from Marcus's older sister, my daughter Cynthia, who lives in Atlanta and with whom Marcus has always had a complicated relationship. She called because Marcus had called her first, apparently to recruit her to his side of the story. She listened to him, and then she called me. "Dad," she said, "what do you need?" I told her I was handling it. "I know you are," she said. "You always handle everything. I'm not asking if you're handling it. I'm asking what you need." I was quiet for a moment. I need someone to tell me I wasn't stupid for trusting him. "You weren't stupid," she said without hesitation. "You were a father. There's no preparation for your child betraying you. That's not stupidity. That's just love with nowhere to go." I wrote that down after we hung up. Love with nowhere to go. I think that is the most accurate description of grief I have ever encountered, and I think it will take me a long time to figure out what to do with it. But I am still here, still standing. Still, despite everything, the son of a man who repaired shoes and a woman who took in laundry, people who taught me that no matter what the world takes from you, it cannot take who you are unless you let it. They cannot take who I am. I will make sure of that.